In the remotest regions of China, inhabited by the country's Tibetan minority, an appalling uprising is underway. In the past year, more than 50 monks have died after setting themselves on fire to protest against government repression. Their uprising is mostly hidden from public view because journalists and TV cameras are usually barred from visiting either the Tibetan Autonomous Region or the neighbouring provinces. But China correspondent Stephen McDonald travelled undercover to Western China to prepare this report. And a warning, this story contains images of self-immolation.
In the remote Tibetan regions of Western China, there's much that hasn't changed for centuries. But behind these tranquil scenes, there are simmering tensions. Some Tibetans are so disenchanted with Chinese rule that their protests are taking a shocking and extreme form. After dousing themselves in flammable liquids, more than 50 people, mostly young monks, have set themselves on fire. In the last 12 months, at least 42 have died. The Chinese government has been in damage control.
我们认为啊，这个事件的最近发生的一系列的这个事件背后，这个有明显的这种幕后策划和煽动的背景。
The head of the Indian-based Tibetan government in exile was in Australia earlier this year.
The blame and solution lies with the Chinese government, and self-immolators have made it very clear. We want basic freedom like any human being, like any Australians.
The Tibetan Plateau is, for the most part, a no-go zone for foreign journalists. But we find a way to sneak into the area in Sichuan province, which has seen the most number of suicides. Winter is coming, and here nomads are on the move. They've broken camp in the high mountains and are heading to lower altitudes to prepare for the cold. It can be a hard life dictated by the elements, but they breed them pretty tough in the Himalayas.
这里是工作，我们藏族人是冬天女羊们吃的草那个树的，我们藏族人说是还是比较传统的地方，这个用的不是。
所以你的爸爸做这个，还有爸爸
就是做这个的事情。
This young man is proud of his heritage, which he says is bound up in Buddhism.
我们生活中最重要是文化，用的文化的都是这个是我们不是做工作的都是情是自然类树上走那是可能念的树上走都是这个有的，因为是文化自然类的文化是我们最重要的文化。
But there's much that people will not talk about openly. It's very difficult to get away from the authorities in Tibetan areas. In villages like this, there are eyes and ears everywhere. So even if we can make contact with ordinary people, and if they know about the immolations, they don't really want to talk about it, especially not on camera. Yet if you spend enough time here, there are those who will speak. We find a monk in a small mountain house helping a poor family. He certainly heard about his young brothers killing themselves nearby. A short distance from where we meet this monk is Aba. Footage secretly filmed inside this locked-down town shows it chock full of military police and SWAT teams. The streets are barricaded as if in a war zone, something akin to Northern Ireland at the height of the Troubles. Aba town alone accounts for 24 self-immolations. It's hard to imagine the desperation that leads young Tibetans to protest by taking their lives in this most agonising way.
We have discouraged drastic actions, including self-immolations. But unfortunately, Tibetan seems to be saying this is the only form of protest left because any other form of protest, the consequence is similar. You get arrested, tortured, and often die.
Earlier this year, the mayor of Aba made a rare public appearance to condemn the immolations in his town.
自焚者在自焚以前实施自焚前大都高呼西藏独立
And the Chinese government says it knows who is ultimately to blame.
达赖喇嘛不但不制止这种违反藏传佛教教规教义的行为，反而怂恿和支持这种反人类、反社会的恐怖行为。
If the Chinese government wants to see an end to self-immolation and various forms of protest inside Tibet, open up Tibet, liberalize Tibet, treat them humanly, give them basic freedom.
Every Tibetan town we visit is crawling with police. We're inevitably seen, and from this point, each time we walk out the door, people are waiting for us. The same cars appear behind us again and again, and spotters start popping up all over the place. So we head for the hills. A government vehicle comes round the mountain. It's carrying the same officers we saw earlier in town.
那你们是谁？
这是我们县委是摆的，我是县委是摆的主任，陈主任。那么我们说不成吧？
那给
我们不能说吧？
那我给我们看那个 ID， 我不知道你是谁，我怎么知道你是谁？
They question our producer and driver, then let us know that they're here out of concern for our well-being. We're told that Tibetan dogs could pose a threat to us. After checking our passports, they tell us we can't be here without permission. We're allowed to go if we move on. But after driving all day, in the next town we're met by a new team of government officials and police.
Lhasa County is not open for the journalists.
Pressure is now on to leave the region entirely. So the next day we get up earlier than those pursuing us and have one last crack at talking to people. We arrive at the Lablung monastery. It has the largest number of monks outside the official Tibetan Autonomous Region and has been the site of protests calling for human rights to be respected. Here we meet a woman who wants to speak to us. What she has to say is precisely what the authorities don't want us to hear.
对，我听说过，这是逼他死的。共产党这个国家不正常。
他们做这个是谁的错？他们自杀。
自杀这个，他们自杀的原因是这个害寺庙困难大，这个国家我们没有那个权利，说话的权利都没有。他们说什么该说什么，我们做该说什么。我们真正的真心真意的那个说话的话，他们抓我们打死了。
She says she's a devout Buddhist and not afraid to speak out, but given the highly sensitive nature of her comments, we've decided to protect her identity. She speaks, for example, about the monasteries being infiltrated by monks on the payroll of the government.
有些喇嘛害得很，坏得很。他们给钱的话，他们穿的那个喇嘛的衣服，他们给钱的国家给钱的话，他们拿钱，国家做什么都他愿意做。
She says that most Tibetans are poor with no hope of improving their lives. And as for a solution to the problem of young monks killing themselves here...
世界的国家，有阿弥陀佛的，有真宗的，世界的国家，全部来，就阿弥陀佛就这样，全部来，就共产党有大炮打，统统的打，不要了这个害得严重的很。
Again, police and government officials find us, and this time there's no getting away. They're angry that we haven't already left town.
Why does it matter? Why do you want us to go?
Because our understand that this is
this is our government's consideration.
But why? What is the problem?
Because you are the journalist.
But we're journalists. We go to lots of places. Why? What is the problem here?
Because this is a Tibetan area. I'm very sorry.
We're escorted out of town until they make sure we're leaving the area well and truly. Behind us is fear, resentment and tragedy, along with government policies showing no sign of winning over Tibetans.